So what judgment can we make on Stalin? Well, since Stalin dominated both military and civilian command structures, he clearly took responsibility for all Soviet actions during the war, and probably exerted more power than any other war leader. He brutally punished failure, for example having generals who allowed their forces to be defeated early in the war executed. Yet he too made mistakes, such as refusing to allow strategic retreats which might have saved thousands of lives. Most historians have blamed Stalin for major disasters, such as allowing the encirclements of Kiev and Leningrad in 1941. He was also guilty of obsessions with pet preferences, such as a love for cavalry. However, here are some positive aspects to Stalin's war leadership. Stalin was prepared to sack incompetent generals, including his old comrade Voroshilov. In this he showed more wisdom than Hitler, who was prone to tolerate incompetent generals provided they were yes men. Stalin provided to be a very effective symbol of resistance for the Soviet people to cling to. He had the sense to make concessions which strengthened the regime, for example reopening the churches in order to get the support of the faithful, whom he had previously persecuted. Stalin did develop a good grasp of strategy. He was able to some extent to build on his considerable experience of the Civil War of 1918 to 21. And finally, Stalin allowed considerable authority to able subordinates, particularly Molotov, deputy chairman of the GKO and commissar for foreign affairs, and therefore responsible for diplomacy, Voznesensky, responsible for economic planning and Gosplan, Malenkov, responsible for party organisation, and Beria, responsible for security including the NKVD. Stalin employed experts to check on the work of the colleagues. He also increasingly showed a willingness to welcome a clash of ideas in order to resolve a problem. A notable example was in 1945 when he told two leading and rival commanders, Marshals Konev and Zhukov, to produce plans for the final assault on Berlin. Here are two critical opposing views to Stalin's leadership. He had solidly armed his country and reorganised its military forces. His practical mind had not been wedded to any one-sided strategic dogma. He had not lulled the Red Army into a false sense of security behind any Russian variety on the Maginot Line. He can now rely on Russia's vast spaces and seaver climate. No body of men could now dispute his leadership. He had achieved absolute unity of command, the dream of the modern strategist. The opposing view is, the view against this, Russia's victory against Germany was almost accidentally the byproduct of German mistakes and the geography and climate of the USSR. If anyone should take the credit, it should be the Russian people at the core of the nation that is a hard, eternal and unconquerable element. It was that was spared in Stalingrad that survived bloodletting and disaster on a horrifying scale. It had nothing to do with Karl Marx and Stalin. Khrushchenko, I Choose Freedom, 1947.